So I came up with this idea called the little red hen paradox. And it's not really a paradox. It's more of a shitty, unavoidable truth. I think that sometimes that's what paradox means, or at least in my world. You know, you don't have to agree. But anyway, you kind of got to know the story of the little red hen first before I can explain how it's a paradox, right? So this is the quick and ugly version. There's this little red hen. She lives in a barnyard farm, and she's got like 3 pseudo friends, a cow, a pig, and a dog, right? And she wants cake. She's got this idea she's going to bake a cake, but she also has this idea that she needs help, you know? So she's like, hey, you guys, who's going to help me pick the wheat so I can bake a cake for us? And they're like, no, I'm not doing it. The pig, the dog, the cow, they're like, yeah, no, just not happening. And she's like, all right. So she picks it herself. And then she's like, hey, you guys, she's a little irritated at this point. Who's going to help me mill the flour? You guys want to do that so we can all have some cake? And the pig's like, not I. And the dog's like, nope. And the cow's like, eat shit. How about that? You know, so she does it herself, right? She's getting more frustrated and more self-righteous as this goes on. I forget the third step, but she goes to him and she's like, who's going to help me whip up some frosting? That's not how the story goes, but cakes need frosting, you know? That's just a reality of cake. So, and they're like, no, man, stop bothering us with this dumb stuff. We don't want to help you. So she goes and makes the frosting herself, you know? And the cake's done, right? Her trap is set, pretty much. It didn't start as a trap, but it became a trap as she made the cake, right? And she's like, hey, who wants to help me eat this cake? Eat this delicious cake I made? And they're all like, oh, me, I do, said the pig, I do, said the cow, I do, said the dog. And she's like, well, you can get fucked, because I did all the work. And I'm going to eat this cake all by myself, right? That's how the story goes, you know? The moral of the story is, the obvious moral is, if you don't invest, you don't get to enjoy anything. You know, like, somebody's going to bar you from that because you didn't do anything. Like, why should you get cake? But the paradox, the little red hen paradox, right? She's got to eat that whole cake. Like, in the story, it's in the title. She's a little red hen. Like, how big's this cake, man? If it's even a small cake, it's 1/4 to 1/3 of her whole body mass. Like, she's got to eat that whole cake, you know? And she's kind of got to eat it in front of them. I mean, that's me reading into it a little bit, but I think in order for it to work, she has to eat it all, and it has to be evidenced, you know? And that's a shitty deal for the hen as well. Like a real bad time, you know? You're probably thinking right now, like, you're reading too much into this. You're one of these yahoos that takes a children's story and deconstructs it. Or like, oh, okay, right? But are you reading too much into Animal Farm? You know? Like, aren't children's stories just short stories with the themes that exist in our larger stories? You know, I mean, aren't they really just extra short stories? And I think it's important that the little red hen's resentments, they don't just punish the lazy cunts that wouldn't help her. They punish her too. And the reason I've been thinking about this a lot is because I often feel like the little red hen. I'm not hitting every story beat. I feel like the version of the little red hen right now that's got to eat that cake. You know, I got to eat that whole cake. And I don't want to, man. I don't even want cake anymore at this point. And I got to eat it anyway. And it's not like spite is part of the reason why. You know, resentment, contempt, spite, those are part of the reason why. But that in and of itself isn't convincing, right? If it was just spite, I'd just share the cake. You're like, hey guys, help me make it next time, right? Or I'm not making a cake. You know, it was a lot of work. It's a pain in the ass. And I'd share the cake. Then we'd all enjoy cake. I'm afraid that if I don't eat the whole cake, I won't understand the situation fully. You know? And that's a little bit like if I have a plan and it goes wildly off the rails, I have to see it through. I have to. Because how am I going to know what really went wrong if I don't? And sometimes that means you eat a whole goddamn cake in front of your enemies, which you made your enemies, by the way, by putting them in a situation that they didn't want to participate. You know? It's like they voted no 3 times. You know, and then you offer them a treat, and they're like, yeah. And you're like, I'm going to eat all your treats, which are actually my treats. So, suck it. Anyway, that's the little red hen paradox. Yeah, I don't know why I'm telling you that. Like, it's just a thing I feel kind of trapped in sometimes. And this falls into the category of pseudo-philosophical rant. I'm going to hashtag it. I'm excited about that hashtag. I worked up to a 155 front squat, and I did some assistance work, which was fun. I enjoyed the whole process. It was a pause front squat. You probably couldn't tell from the time lapse, but I paused a good 5 seconds in the bottom, completely released my brace, completely took a full breath. And now I'm doing some Turkish get-ups. I think that's 65. Yeah. I was pretty smoked. So I would be more disappointed with a 65-pound Turkish get-up. I think my PR is 75. But it just felt fine. And then after this, I do some waiter's carries. 55 pounds around my cul-de-sac. It's a third of a mile. I switch hands between every speed bump, and there are a ton of speed bumps, so it's actually a pretty good interval. They're not exactly perfectly spaced, but they're spaced pretty close. I mean, some of the turns get a little long, but I'd say they're within 10 meters, you know, of being exactly the same distance, which is a really cool marker. And I like that kind of stuff. I like using the environment. I'm not like a functional movement dude, but I like using my environment to determine sets and reps and actions and movement I'm going to do. And I think like it's a very underrated aspect of training, you know? Like you can take an old beach towel and you can go into the woods a little ways, and you've got like, with a tree and an old beach towel, everything you need to do a good pulling workout. You have that, push-ups, squats, and you have a full body workout. You know, even body weight squats. Like, there's no reason you don't need equipment. That's all I'm saying. I like equipment, but you don't need it. Anyway, I hope you're at least entertained by that dumb story. This is Joe in real life. I love you guys. Do your best to be nice to each other today. I'm going to try hard to not be such a resentful little bitch. And maybe share that cake. I don't know. I feel like it would be good if I did.